Hi there, it's Sharon, and welcome to my studio. Today I have another quick and easy card to share with you using this brand new Love Notes set from Tim Holtz and Stampers Anonymous. This card is using one of my oldest and most favorite distressing techniques, stamping and then spraying with a little bit of water. Um, I'll show you how I did it if you haven't used this distress ink this way or done this technique before. But this is another really quick and easy card. If you wanted to make it even easier, you could just use one or two colors. Or if you want to make multiples, if you're using this many inks, this is a great time to make multiple of this card. So what I'm going to do is just take out the stamps that I want to use from the set. So I'm going to take out basically all of the nice scribbly solid stamps. So I'll even take out a small one. And then I'm going to use for the sentiment the one that says with all my heart. So the next thing I'll do is just put all of my stamps onto a stamp block. So I'm ready to stamp. Make sure that they're stuck down really well. Just make sure that they're stuck down really well. And then I will go ahead and just stamp my sentiment. Now I've made this card before and I really like where everything is placed. So if I do that on a card, I just want to make sure my stamp is clean. Um, and I want to make the card again and I want to kind of use the same placement. I'm just going to put it on my stamp positioner just where it is. And then I will use Distress Archival ink and black soot to stamp my sentiment. And I'm going to put a piece of Distress watercolor paper in my stamp positioner. So I'll go ahead and just ink it up. And I'll give it one more. Okay, and that looks good. And then we'll get ready to stamp. So we are going to use a lot of different colors of ink. I'll quickly go over what those are, and I have them off to the side here. I have the whole rainbow, and then I did add brown, and I really like how the brown looks on the card. I wasn't sure at first, but when I added it, I just really like how it makes the card come together. So the colors that I've used today are picked raspberry, lumberjack plaid, ripe persimmon, fossilized amber, crushed olive, lucky clover, uncharted mariner, shaded lilac, seedless preserves, and gathered twigs. That's the brown. It's hard to see off the camera, but that's what we're going to be using today. And how I like to stamp something like this, I will go ahead and follow along with the pattern that I've kind of already made on my paper. But I like to stamp something like this where I'm putting a bunch of stamps, use the bigger stamps, and then fill in with the smaller. So my biggest stamp that I used was probably this one. I think that's the only one I used that size for. And I did it in shaded lilac. So when I'm inking up, you'll see when I'm inking up a solid stamp like this, sometimes just putting the ink on it doesn't cover the whole surface. I like to just twist it ever so slightly. And then you can see it's definitely totally inked up now. The next thing I'll do is just give it a mist with my distress sprayer, like 2 or 3 mists. I think I did 3 there. And I'm going to try to keep the placement of this card that's up here. So I'll go ahead and stamp the stamp in shaded lilac, and then I'll wipe it off. And then I'll move on to the next color. So the next color, let's use some of the bigger stamps. So the next one that I did with the bigger stamps would be this lumberjack plaid and the fossilized amber. So I'll go ahead and add those on. And just doing the same thing, just making sure that my stamp is inked up really well. I'm doing a little twist with my ink pad to make sure the whole thing gets covered. And then just giving it about 3 sprays of water there. And I'm going to line it up just on the top here. And it's going to overlap a little bit. And I'm fine with that. I think I'm doing a little harder stamping than I did on my first card. And then I wiped off my stamp with a stamp chamois, and I'll do my other bigger stamp here. So this is fossilized amber. Go ahead and just ink that up, and I'll do the same thing and just add this right here. So now I'm going to take the smaller stamps and just start filling in the rest of the spaces. And just remember, in between every time you stamp, especially if you're using the same stamp for something else, to clean your stamp when you're done so you don't mix the inks up. Let me just get some of that water from the spraying out of the way, and I'll continue on. And then just one more stamp, I think this one up here with the seedless preserves with this stamp. And now we'll move on to the next smaller size. So for this one, I have a crushed olive now. And then we'll go ahead and do the picked raspberry. And as I'm stamping along, I'm just going to go in and wipe off my mat. It's getting a little bit too much water on it. And then we just have two more to finish with some of the smaller, with the smallest heart stamp. So this one is Uncharted Mariner. Same thing. Just wipe my stamp off. And now we're ready for the last one. So it looks pretty similar to the one I did above. Like I said, if you're going to do a whole bunch of these at once, I would start with one color and do it on all of your panels and then move on to the next before cleaning up your stamps. But now that that's done, you'll notice this one has like a little bit more movement. It's a little more blurry. What I did was just give it a couple of sprays, say like maybe 7, 8 sprays, and the ink's going to start to move a little bit, not not a ton. It's there. You can see it's just starting to move a little bit. And right as it does, I'm going to take my heat tool and just give it a really thorough dry. Now, if you don't like the look or liked how it looked before, that's fine. You can just leave it at that step. I kind of liked the hearts to look like maybe I had a little hand in painting them, which I certainly couldn't do. And we'll go ahead and just make sure this panel is completely dry. And that's how it looks. So now it's time to assemble the card. This should be pretty quick. You notice like I did work with watercolor paper and did a lot of spraying, and the paper is not perfectly straight. And I've talked about this before, but I will grab a card base, and how I like to assemble my cards, I don't really use a tape runner. I use some Be Creative, like this two-sided tape. It's super sticky. So anything that I've done with mixed media or spray or paint where it's caused the paper to warp a little bit, this will let it adhere to the card and not be bumpy. It'll be nice and smooth. So I go ahead and just add a piece of tape to either side. And then I will add 2 pieces of tape right down the middle. You can rip this tape just for this. I'm trying to keep it nice and straight, but most of the time at my desk, I just rip it off, and it is what it is. We'll go ahead and just peel the backing off. And then I'll line up my card base in my score pal, and then just go ahead and line up the card. And there's the finished card. So I hope you enjoyed playing around with this technique, stamping with some more solid stamps using your distress inks and giving them a little water spray to look more like watercolor. If you like this video, I'd appreciate if you gave it a thumbs up. And if you want to see more videos like this, be sure to subscribe. And thanks so much for watching.